In the last video, I demonstrated how to make a status panel that changes description based on what's going on in the game, and what's going on in the game is indicated by several variables that we've added. Whether life support was active, weapons were active, or the engines were active, or broken or fixed, or whatever. We could make a variation on this, so that panel's showing us three things at a time. And that's cool. I mean, it works well. But sometimes in a game you've got like a radio or a PDA, and once you complete one task, then it's like they radio you the next task to do, and it's kind of cheesy, but it's certainly doable. It's kind of like you get your mission objectives not all at once, but in pieces after you've completed parts of the game. So let's look at how to do that. And I'm going to do it right within this other project here. I'm going to add a new object, and I'm just going to call it PDA. And I'll make it portable and put it in the player's inventory. And let's, now we need to know what are the different objectives. And this is where we're going to look at your design document and get that information. So I'm going to make a variable here called current_objective and click add. Okay, so now we have something called current objective. And we have to figure out what these different objectives mean. So let's make a function here, and just like we had examine panel in our last example, let's make one called examine PDA. Okay. So now what we can do is we can check the status of our variable, our current objective, and based on that we can customize. We can change what the PDA says. So if, let's say, actually, let me do this with an if tab. There we go. If current objective equals 0, well then we're going to print out one thing. Else if tab current objective equals 1, we're going to print something else out, and then I can just copy and paste this. So with these else ifs, 0, how many cases? 1, 2, 3. Maybe we don't need that many. 1, 2, 3. Let's just leave it at 4. All right. So when we have a bunch of if else ifs chained together, we are only going to ever execute one of these blocks at most. So if this condition is true, we'll do this code, and then we jump to the end. If this condition isn't true, then we'll check this condition. Is this condition true? If it is, we'll do this and jump to the end. If it's not true, we'll keep going. Is this true? If it's true, we'll do this. If it's not, we'll keep going. If this is true, then we'll do this code. If not, then we'll jump to the end. So it's possible, like what if current objective were 5? Well, then none of these cases would match, and it wouldn't do anything. But really, only one of these can be true at a time. So let's just the PDA indicates you need to repair life support immediately, right? Or something like that. Then let's say if the current objective is 1, you need to repair, you need to get the engines online. Online, is that right? I don't know. And if the current objective is 2, maybe we'll say we need to activate weapons. PDA indicates you need to charge weapons. All right, now what if the mission is 3 here? Well, then how about we say indicates mission complete, or something like that. We print out a status message or something like that. So now what we need to do, we've got our function called examine PDA. Now what we need to do is just wire this thing up to a sentence. So we'll say, when we examine the PDA, we're going to call our examine PDA function and add that. And what if they tried to read the PDA? Let's do that too. So we'll say, if the player tries to read the PDA, or what if the player tries to use the PDA? I highly recommend against using the verb use. The problem is it becomes, you could use it for anything. Use the wrench, use the gun, use the rope. No, you want to use now are verbs that are specific to the things that that you're manipulating. Like, you don't want to use the rope. You want to tie the rope, right? You don't want to use the sword. You want to kill somebody with the sword. You don't want to use the wrench. You want to turn the bolt with the wrench. Avoid the verb use. But for like a computer, it's probably not unreasonable to try that. But now what we've done here is we've taken these three different sentences and we have now mapped them all to our examine PDA function. So let's run this here. Oh, do I have the PDA? I'm carrying a PDA. Examine the PDA. The PDA indicates that you need to repair life support immediately. Okay, why? Why did it do that? Well, if I type VARS, you will see that our current objective is 0. And what did our function say? It said when our current objective is 0, print line, the PDA indicates you need to repair life support immediately. All right. So now let's just experiment. Let's just test it out. So how am I going to test this out? Oh, also notice anytime you're comparing or testing for equality, it's the double equal sign. When you're setting a value, then it's only one equal sign. So let's go to our game start function here, and I'm going to say current objective equals 1. So now it's not 0 anymore. It's going to start being 1. So let's run this and examine the PDA. And it says the PDA indicates you need to get the engines online. Okay, why did it do that? Because our function says if the current objective is 1, then print the PDA indicates you need to get the engines online. And then once it's done that, it jumps to the end. So what we have here is, okay, and then we'll just keep testing it in our game start function, which is, this gives us a chance to customize the game before it starts up. Maybe we want to randomize the position of objects or print more of a backstory. That's when you use it. Let's set the current objective to 2, and let's run this. Type vars just to debug the game and see what's in it. Current objective is 2. Examine the PDA. PDA indicates you need to charge weapons. All right, so is that what our function said to do? Yup. Okay, and then finally let's set the current objective to 3 back in that game start function. Change that and then run it. And examine PDA. PDA indicates mission complete. All right, so there's our now how would the current objective change? Well, that's up to you. That's something else in the game. That's once you have to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to complete that first objective? And then once I've completed that first task, I'm going to add 1 to current objective so that it so that the player will see will get that message about the next objective. And maybe you want to even print something like the PDA beeps or something, when you do that. So there's an example of here. Let's even do something like that. I'm gonna just as a demo here, I'm gonna put in a timer. Oh, you know what? Actually, I won't even use a timer because we've got some variables. I think we have one called moves. There you go. All right, we've got one called moves we can play with. Events. I'll call it update objective. So events are places where we can put code that's going to run every turn, no matter what the player types. We're going to run this stuff, and it can control what happens in our game to make events happen. So we'll say if turns, I guess it was moves. It's the number of moves the player's made or turns. If moves is 4, maybe, I don't know. Objective plus plus. Okay, actually what we'll do is, so that would add 1 to the current objective. Current objective. There we go. All right, that means add plus plus means add 1 to. And then let's say maybe if else if moves equals 10, add 1. Actually, we could also combine all this into one thing. We could say if moves is 5 or moves is 10 or moves is 15. So we're going to go from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. So now, also let's print line, just for fun, the PDA beeps. All right. And I spelled that wrong. That's print ln, print line. Okay, and let's just run this and see what it does. Okay, so vars shows us moves is 0. I'm just going to type I a bunch of times. The PDA beeps. Examine the PDA. What's going on? Vars. Oh, the current objective is 4. How did that happen? Oh, I know how it happened. It's because in our game start function, we set it to 3. So let's just leave it set as 0. So we were starting it at 3. That's what was going on there. So you can see there, current objective is 0. I'm going to type inventory a bunch of times. Whoops, there we go. The PDA beeps. Examine the PDA. PDA indicates you need to get the engines online. Right, so the current objective is now 1. Let's type inventory a bunch of times. The PDA beeps. Examine the PDA. You need to charge weapons. I. Okay, so the PDA beeps. Examine the PDA. The PDA indicates mission complete, right? So what I've done there is I just kind of mocked up something that would advance the turn counter and just kind of show you how you could use this. Also, you could combine all this into one function. You could say if moves equals 5 or moves equals 10 or moves equals 15, then do that. That's what that says. If moves is equal to 5 or moves is equal to 10 or moves is equal to 15, then print the PDA beeps and advance the mission objective. So there you go. I mean, this is sort of not really super useful, but it just does show you how events work, and it shows you how you could have some sort of a radio or a PDA or something that would feed you your mission as the game unfolded, as opposed to kind of just clobbering the player with it in the backstory. And then where was it? It was examine the PDA. So all we have is we just have a variable, and based on that variable, we print out what the mission objective is. And then once the player completes a particular objective, which is up to your game design document, then you just add 1 to the current objective, and then the player will get, the next message. So there you go. There's a way to kind of have a PDA or something that feeds the player the mission objectives or the game objectives incrementally.